We're very happy to have you with us today. First of all, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Abe Karar. I'm the founder and CEO of Alchemy Digital Solutions, a digital consulting company, and one of the new partners of TradeFinex. And I'm very delighted to be here today. We actually have a very interesting topic to discuss. And it actually comes from a real problem that is faced in the world that we're in today. When you actually think about it, the trade finance market size is in the trillions. However, we find that 80% of the trade finance instruments are your traditional lines of credit, etc. And more than half of the micro and small medium enterprises have a hard time accessing these type of credit facilities. But this is where TradeFinex comes in. And this is where the innovation of the Zenfin network comes in. Now, before we jump right into the action, I'd like to point out that TradeFinex is an entity that is regulated by the ADGM RegLab. And to give us a little bit of a glimpse into the RegLab and what it's all about, I'd like to invite to the stage Dr. Bhaskar Dasgupta to talk to us about that. Welcome, Doctor.
Thank you very much for that. I'll try and keep it light because I think the last thing you want is a regulator banging on about stuff after lunch. It kind of interrupts and interferes with your digestion. So I'll try and keep it light. The RegLab. So for that, I'll have to give a bit of a background to where we are coming from. And for those people who don't know, and apologies to those who do know, ADGM is a startup as well. So we are about, I would say, 5 years old, and we were brought into existence by the federal law about 6 years back. So we threw our doors open 5 years back, and as of, I believe, yesterday, we've got a shade under 2,400 registrations over here. So growing at a relatively fast clip. But what was the background to it? The background to setting up a financial center needed to be asked, because it's like sort of saying, do you want to have another financial center? And generally the question is met with puzzlement, saying, no, why do I need another financial center? I mean, like, it's not like that the world is bereft of financial centers. There are quite a lot of them. But the first and foremost thing that we went around asking, if you do need a financial center, the first thing that everybody said was, yes, please, we desperately need a financial center which has got English common law. Now, if you look at the current footprint of jurisdictions which do offer English common law, there is practically not even a single jurisdiction between Singapore and London. Now, there is no other jurisdiction which has got pure English common law. What that basically means is that any case or any jurisdiction driven ruling that has been passed in any of the other common law jurisdictions like Australia, New Zealand, the UK, Singapore, Hong Kong, etc., they are immediately reflected in our statute books. So if you want to compare it, one of the easiest ways to compare it is to look, for example, into the Companies Law Act in the UK. That, of course, excluding few things, we were just talking about it relating to stamp tax, that entire 800 pages is just copied and pasted. So that was the first reason why we were set up. The second reason that we were set up was Abu Dhabi wants to diversify its economy, because the president, and of course Sheikh Zayed, he already noticed that relying on a country's development on stuff that you dig out of the ground is by its very nature something that's going to run out in time. So we realized that our economy has to change and move away from a fossil fuel based economy to an economy which is much more agile, mobile and hostile to all kinds of inefficiencies. So the financial center that we are setting up is supposed to drive at least about 6 to 8% of the ADGM economy, plus finance all the new sectors that are coming up. And there's a reason why I'm giving you all this history. Now, when you're talking about the new sectors that are coming up, what are these new sectors? I was just pointing to this new badge that I got today, and it shows a spaceman. So we are just hosting our colleagues from the Luxembourg Space Agency, and the idea is that, did you know that UAE has got a flourishing space sector? We have investments. There is a huge space industry coming up in Al Ain, which incidentally has got 86% females working there. And so these are the new sectors that we are starting to develop. The same thing is happening in water. We're talking about education. We're talking about clean energy. We're talking about transportation, so on and so forth. So all these new sectors are coming up, and we are supposed to actually encourage their financing and development. But as you were saying, and me being a traditional banker for a long time and also worked for the British government in export finance, exporting is tough, especially when you're talking about goods. That's number one. Number two is, for those who are so inclined, might want to check out something that's called as a peak stuff theory. That stuff, stuff. This kind of stuff, anything that is made, the amount of stuff out there in the marketplace or in the market is starting to plateau out. One of the things that I had financed a long time back in Hong Kong was an Uber for suitcases. You have a suitcase, you just use it for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and the rest of the time it just wasted space. So why don't you rent those? Now, great for consumers, but insofar as making stuff is concerned and international trade, you have just seen a huge hit in the number of suitcases being sold. And where I'm coming from in England, you're looking at a very large proportion of the economy was in services. One of the key things I used to challenge the people that I used to speak to was, you're talking about a 16-year-old girl who's sitting in Scunthorpe, and she's starting to build a business on Instagram showing how to do makeup skills. And she wants a working capital loan for $400. How is she going to get that? That was the exam question that I'm giving an example. Currently, that economic activity is extremely difficult to finance. Very, very difficult to finance. There are no assets. There is no collateral. There is no way that she's going to set up an LC. What are you going to do when you're talking about YouTube? And this is the kind of new economic sectors that we are starting to see that are coming up. So for that, we are very, very cognizant that the financial system that needs to exist to support that, frankly, we don't know. That's the fundamental assumption we are starting with. Yes, I have a rule book, which is EFAT. Well, that shows what an old git I am. It's electronic, so it can't be fat. But there are lots of pages there. But the new mechanisms that we're talking about, we have no idea. We have absolutely no idea about what are the requirements that might be coming up. We have absolutely no clue about how services trade is going to be financed. We have no idea about what is the meaning of collateral in the new world. We have no idea as to how to set up digital identities. Yes, there are quite a lot of options out there, but we don't know where we can actually get to. So that was, in a very, very long story, cutting it short, the idea was that we wanted to create an environment where people can come and test out new operating models. So that's what gave rise to our RegLab. And I know everybody says that they have a RegLab and they have a sandbox and things like that, but what we think we have managed to achieve, number one, is obviously, as I said, the English common law is absolutely vital. The one person who said, I've got to give you this little story, but you have got to excuse me, I'm an old man, so I end up telling stories. So I met up with this person who had qualified under a different system of law. And they said that whenever you go into a court where that different system of law is applied, there the law is applied, unlike English common law, where justice is done. And that is the reason why most international trade is denominated under English common law. So that's the first thing that we bring. The second thing obviously is our sandbox, which is currently the digital sandbox, which is currently under construction. And it was announced in the last FinTech summit. And it's on our cost, and you know, we are very happy to support anybody who's coming in. Well, a lot of banks are there. We started off the RegLab thinking about how do we encourage new entrants like yourselves to come in a safe and secure environment to test it out. And the idea would be is that we throw out our rule book, I mean not literally, but we sit down with you, we understand what your business model is, and then we apply the bare minimum of the rule book that is appropriate for your particular operating model. And then add a few more bits and bobs here and there so that we have a bespoke regulatory framework that looks after you. And then you've got a few months, 2 years, for you to check out that particular model under our regulatory framework. And once the sandbox is there, you can test it out there, and you've got customers, etc., etc. Besides this, the other things that have already come up are things like the financing platforms, Hub 71, the accelerators, the announcements that have been made by ADIO and Mubadala Ventures, and the presence of quite a lot of VCs that are coming in. And plus, the most important thing is that even though that the peak stuff theory is coming through, you are still in the middle of the location on Earth where most of the future growth is going to come from. So whether you're talking about the trade corridors between China and Africa, whether you're talking about South Asia and the Middle East, these corridors that you're looking at, you are right in the middle. And of course, the government is very, very interested to encourage this kind of development to happen. So the entire Abu Dhabi solution that we have got is, as I said, the legals, the technicals, the regulatory, the funding, and then we are of course available to help out, like I'm standing here, I'm telling you, these guys asked, it's in my interest to make sure that we encourage firms like them, especially who are coming up with new solutions. Okay, let's sit down and talk. So that, in a nutshell, is our RegLab. It's opened by cohorts, and each cohort has got a particular theme. But we are open. If anybody is interested in the RegLab, drop us a note. Happy to talk. So thank you very much. Hopefully I haven't taken up more of your time, but best of luck for that.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Bhaskar Das. That was very insightful and very, entertaining at the same time. Thank you.